My name is Ryan, and if I ever had any lingering doubts about where I stood in my family, they were erased the day I found out about the will. I wasn't supposed to see it. There was no dramatic sit-down moment where my parents carefully explained their decisions. No heartfelt conversation about their final wishes. I found out purely by accident, through sheer dumb luck. It happened a few months ago while I was at their house, the same house I'd been helping them pay for over the past 5 years. Mortgage payments, occasional grocery runs, fixing things when they broke. I had stepped up in ways my parents never even acknowledged. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Caleb, did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. No job, no responsibilities, just lounging around and waiting for life to hand him everything on a silver platter. That day, my dad had asked me to scan some documents for him. As usual, neither of my parents could be bothered to figure out how to do things themselves, so I did what I always did, handled it for them. It was a stack of legal and financial paperwork, and I didn't think much of it until I saw the words that made my stomach drop. I hesitated. I don't normally snoop, but curiosity got the best of me. After all, I was the one making sure they kept a roof over their heads. It wasn't out of line to wonder how they had planned for the future. So, I opened it. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Caleb. The house, their savings, their assets. Not a single mention of me, except for some generic line about how they were grateful for my help. Grateful. That's what they called it. As if I had just done them a casual favor. As if I hadn't spent years making sure they never had to worry about money while Caleb sat around contributing absolutely nothing. I felt like a fool. Here I was, bending over backward for them, making sure their bills got paid, making sure they never had to stress about groceries, and all the while, they were making plans for a future where I got absolutely nothing. And Caleb, he wasn't just lazy, he was entitled. He never lifted a finger to help them, never once even considered stepping up. But in their eyes, he deserved it all. Maybe because he was the youngest, maybe because they had always babied him, maybe because he knew exactly how to manipulate them. Whatever the reason, they had made their choice. I sat there staring at the paper, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and betrayal. How long had they planned this? Had they always intended for me to be their financial safety net, with nothing in return? Did they ever actually appreciate what I did for them? I had no idea how long I sat there before my dad's voice pulled me back to reality. Ryan? What's taking so long? I didn't even bother to hide the will. I held it up, looking him dead in the eye. So, this is how it is? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Everything to Caleb? After everything I've done for you? For a second, my dad looked like he had been punched in the stomach. But then, just as quickly, he sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Ryan, it's not what you think, he muttered. Oh, really? I snapped. Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been keeping this house afloat for years, while Caleb does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters. Dad shifted uncomfortably, but instead of actually explaining himself, he just muttered, "It's complicated." That was it. No apology. No justification beyond those two useless words. Just a weak excuse and an expectant look, like he was waiting for me to drop it and go back to being their personal ATM. I should have walked out right then and there, but I wanted to hear it from both of them. So, I called for my mom. She walked in, immediately sensing something was wrong. She saw the will in my hands, then looked at my face, and I swear, for a split second, I saw guilt flash across her features. But what she said next made my blood boil. "Ryan, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said gently, as if she was doing me a favor. "You have a good job, you're independent. Caleb, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." That was the moment something inside me snapped. They knew exactly what they were doing, and in their minds, it was completely justified. I had sacrificed, worked hard, made sure they were never in financial distress, and they repaid me by ensuring that I got nothing. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and set the will down on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice eerily controlled. "Glad to know where we stand." Then, without another word, I turned and walked out of the house, ignoring their protests as I slammed the door behind me. They had made their decision. Now, it was time for me to make mine. For the first time in years, I stopped reaching out. I didn't call. I didn't check in. I didn't stop by the house to fix things or drop off groceries. If they needed something fixed, they could figure it out. If they needed food, they could go buy it themselves. And most importantly, if that mortgage bill showed up, I wasn't the one paying it anymore. At first, I think they assumed I was just pouting, that I would come crawling back like always, like the good, dutiful son they expected me to be. Maybe they thought I would cool off and apologize for daring to question their decision. But as the days passed with no word from me, I could practically feel the shift in their attitude. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Dad, the property taxes are due." That was it. No. "Hey, How have you been? No, we're sorry for what happened. No, we appreciate everything you've done. Just a cold, transactional message like I was still the walking bank they could tap into whenever they pleased. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost amused at how predictable they were. They really thought they could just demand money from me after everything? I slowly typed back, I'm sure Caleb will handle it since the house is his and all. And then I hit send. It took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text came through. Mom, Ryan, please don't be like this. We need to talk. Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that the bills were piling up, and reality was finally slapping them in the face, I waited an hour before responding. Ryan, there's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now live with it. I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I was wrong. Because that evening, Caleb texted me. And if I thought my parents' entitlement was bad, his was about to blow me away. That evening, just as I was winding down for the night, my phone buzzed. Caleb. I already knew this was going to be good. Caleb. Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do. I stared at the message, half expecting a follow-up where he admitted it was a joke. But of course, he was dead serious. I took a deep breath, rolled my shoulders, and typed back, me. No. I think you've got it covered. Since you're the favorite and all. His response came almost instantly. Caleb. Oh my God. Are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money. Oh, now it was just money? Now that he was the one inheriting it all, suddenly it didn't matter? The hypocrisy was astounding. I fired back, me. Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right? Silence. A few minutes later, my mom sent another text. This time, she was going full guilt trip mode. Mom. Ryan. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to take a deep breath. Abandoning them? I had spent years making sure they never struggled, while they coddled Caleb and rewarded his laziness. Now that they were dealing with the consequences of their own choices, I was the bad guy. I wasn't falling for it. Me, you made it clear I wasn't part of the family. Now Caleb can take care of you. I could imagine my mom gasping dramatically. She always had a flair for playing the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad sent another text, and this one had me seething. Dad, we're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish. That word made my blood boil. I had been bailing them out for years, sacrificing my own finances, while Caleb sat around doing nothing. And now that I was finally standing up for myself, I was the selfish one? I took a deep breath, my fingers tightening around my phone, and typed back, me. No. I'm done. Then, without another word, I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now they were going to live with it. The silence lasted a full 24 hours. I should have known that was too good to be true. The next morning, I woke up to a payment request. I frowned, unlocking my phone to check. It was from Mom. $3,500. I actually laughed. Out loud. No message. No explanation. Just a cold, shameless demand for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking anymore. They were just assuming I'd cave. I declined it without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then another text came through. Mom. Ryan, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I took my time before replying. Me. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Caleb. Another call declined. Then another text. Mom. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. Oh, now it was an emergency. After all those years of treating me like a walking wallet, they were finally facing consequences. I typed back, me. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, Dad chimed in. Dad, so you'd let your own parents become homeless? That one actually made me laugh. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost impressive. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown on the streets. They just didn't want to dip into their own savings because they were so used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. But that night, Caleb decided to chime in. Caleb, dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. This entitled little prick had the nerve to tell me I was the problem? I shot back. Me. You're the one inheriting everything. Why don't you send it? His response was almost instant. Caleb, you know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh. So now it was about affordability. He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts. But the second it was his turn, suddenly he had nothing to offer? I replied, me. Guess you better figure it out. Then. You're the one they chose. Silence. No response. I went to bed feeling oddly at peace. like I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day, things got worse. At 9 a.m. sharp, I got a call from my apartment's front desk. Receptionist. Hey, Ryan. Your parents are here. I nearly dropped my phone. Me. What? She hesitated before adding. They're saying it's an emergency, and that you won't answer their calls. Oh my God. They showed up at my apartment, just because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. Me. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was an awkward pause. Receptionist. They're being kind of pushy. I clenched my jaw. Me. I don't care. They're not coming up. Then, almost like clockwork, a text from Mom. Mom. We're downstairs. Open the door. No question. No explanation. Just another demand. I didn't respond. Another text. Mom. Ryan. We're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. They weren't going to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared. I was furious. The sheer audacity of these people to show up at my home, uninvited, demanding money. Not even a half-hearted apology, just a full-fledged ambush. I yanked the door open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and of course, Caleb, all standing in a tight little formation, like they were about to stage some kind of family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed. Her classic disappointed mother look locked and loaded. Dad was standing stiff, hands in his pockets, his expression a mix of frustration and entitlement. And Caleb the little leech had the nerve to look bored. Like this whole situation was just mildly inconvenient for him. Like he wasn't the reason any of this was happening. When Mom saw me, she immediately went full theatrics. Mom, Ryan, finally. We need to talk. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Me. No. You need to leave. She blinked, as if she physically couldn't comprehend what I just said. Mom. Excuse me? Me. You heard me. My voice was calm, controlled, but firm. Me. You don't get to show up here and demand money. Not anymore. Dad let out a sharp scoff. Dad, are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? I let out a cold laugh. Me. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to be in your will? Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I had just slapped her. Mom, Ryan, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Me. Best for the family? You mean best for Caleb? Just say it. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For once, she had nothing to say. And that silence? It spoke volumes. For a moment nobody spoke. Mom's mouth was still opening and closing like she was searching for some justification. But she had nothing. Dad's expression darkened. His hands still stuffed in his pockets like he was barely restraining himself from saying something even worse. And Caleb looked annoyed. Like this was such an inconvenience for him. I wasn't falling for it. I let the silence drag on, let them stew in it. Then I turned to Caleb. Me. You want to say something, or are you just going to stand there looking useless? His jaw tightened, but he still had the nerve to shrug. Caleb, look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I actually laughed. Me. Oh, you don't want to be involved? That's rich. You had no problem taking everything they handed you. But the second there's a problem, suddenly, you're just an innocent bystander? Caleb scowled. Caleb, I didn't ask for anything. Me, right. You just sat back and took it. He rolled his eyes, shoving his hands in his pockets. Caleb, dude, what do you want me to say? I took a step forward, lowering my voice. Me, I want you to own up to the fact that you've had your entire life handed to you on a silver platter, while I was the one actually keeping this family afloat. His face turned red, but he stayed silent. I turned back to my parents. Me, and you too. Let me get this straight. You expect me to pay your mortgage, keep you from losing the house, and act like your personal safety net, but when it comes to inheritance, I don't even exist? Mom sighed heavily, like I was being so unreasonable. Mom, Ryan, honey, we just thought. I cut her off. Me, no, you didn't think so. Or maybe you did, and you just didn't care. Either way, I'm done. If Caleb is the one who deserves everything, then he can start paying for everything. That seems fair, right? Mom's face crumpled, and for a second, I thought she might cry. But then, Dad stepped forward. His expression hardened. Dad, Ryan, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. The least you can do is help us now. I stared at him for a long moment. Then, I shook my head. Me, I already did. For years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Mom, we thought you'd understand. I let out a slow, bitter laugh. Me, oh, I understand perfectly. You didn't want a second son. You wanted a second parent to take care of you when things got hard. And the worst part? You didn't even have the decency to be honest about it. Dad's nostrils flared, his fists clenching at his sides. Dad, we are your family. I tilted my head, studying him. Then I said the words that I knew would hit the hardest. Me? No, Dad. I was your investment. And you just found out it wasn't a good one. Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Then, Caleb finally snapped. Caleb, what the hell do you want from me, man? I turned to him. Me? I don't want anything from you. That's the difference between us. His face twisted into something ugly, something raw. Caleb, this isn't my fault. I laughed again, shaking my head. Me? You're right. It's not. But it's sure as hell your problem now. For the first time, realization flickered across his face. Like it was finally hitting him what this actually meant. That all the years of coasting were coming to an end. I turned back to my parents, exhaling slowly. Me? I hope Caleb takes good care of you. But I won't be around to see it. Mom's eyes widened, panic creeping in. Mom, Ryan, wait. I stepped back inside, my pulse steady. And then I shut the door in their faces. I could still hear them shouting through the door, but I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I was done. And it felt good. I leaned against the door, listening to the muffled shouting outside. Mom's voice was the loudest, her words barely making it through the thick wood. Ryan, please, just come talk to us. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just stood there, breathing, waiting for them to give up. After a few minutes, Dad's voice cut through the noise. This is ridiculous. We're your parents. Open the damn door. Still, I said nothing. I think that silence scared them more than anything else. Eventually, the noise faded. I heard their footsteps retreating, heard the distant sound of a car door slamming, an engine starting. I waited another minute before looking out the peephole. They were gone. I let out a slow breath. I should have felt relieved, but all I felt was tired. I walked back to my couch and sat down, rubbing my hands over my face. My phone was already buzzing again. I knew without looking that it was them. Blocked. It didn't take long for the real fallout to begin. By that evening, I was already being dragged through the mud online. Mom posted first. It's heartbreaking when you raise a child, give them everything, and they turn their back on you in your time of need. Family should always come first. Please pray for us. Oh, she was good. Vague enough to sound innocent, manipulative enough to get sympathy. The comments were worse. Distant relatives, old family friends, even people I barely remembered chimed in. Stay strong, Lisa. Some kids just don't appreciate what they have. Ungrateful. I could never turn my back on my parents. I don't know the full story, but Ryan always seemed a little selfish growing up. That last one made me laugh. People the first hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions on my character. Then Dad posted his own version. When did we stop valuing family? I worked hard my whole life. And now, when I need help the most, I'm abandoned. I would never have done this to my parents. Oh, give me a break. Then came Caleb's post. Family isn't about money. It's about love, sacrifice, and being there for each other. Some people just don't get that. That one actually made me see red. The guy who contributed nothing to our family was suddenly an expert on love and sacrifice? I was tempted to respond, to call them all out, but then I had a better idea. I opened my own Facebook. I kept it simple. No dramatics, no theatrics, just the truth. I see my family has decided to publicly rewrite history. So let me clarify a few things. I have been supporting my parents financially for years. I have paid their mortgage, covered their bills, and ensured they never had to struggle. My brother Caleb, on the other hand, has never worked a day in his life, and was content to let me shoulder everything while he reaped the benefits. When I found out that my parents planned to leave everything to him, the house, the savings, everything, I decided I was done being their personal ATM. And now that they actually have to take responsibility for their choices, I'm suddenly the villain. Family should be a two-way street, not a one-sided transaction. If you still think I'm the bad guy, that's fine. But I know my worth now, and I refuse to be used any longer. I hit post. The reaction was instant. Some people stayed silent, probably realizing they had jumped to conclusions. Others actually apologized, saying they had no idea what was really going on. A few cousins reached out privately, telling me they were on my side but didn't want to get involved in the mess. And my parents? Oh, they were furious. The phone calls started again. First Mom. Ryan, take that down right now. Blocked. Then Dad. This is not how you handle family matters. Blocked. Then Caleb. Dude, what the hell? You made us look bad. Me. Good. Blocked. They tried emailing me. They tried messaging me through relatives. They even had one of Mom's old friends reach out with a worried message about how this is all a misunderstanding, and we just need to sit down and talk. I ignored them all. But the final straw came 2 days later. I got a money request from mom on my bank app, $3,500. No message. No explanation. Just a cold, shameless request for the exact amount needed to cover the overdue mortgage. I declined it. Seconds later, a text. Mom, Ryan, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I stared at my phone, barely believing it. I typed back. Me, because it's not my responsibility. Try Caleb. A minute later, another text. Mom, we are going to lose the house if you don't help us. I let out a sharp breath, gripping my phone tight. Me, maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. Then Dad chimed in. Dad, so you'd rather see your own parents homeless? Oh, the dramatics. I actually laughed out loud at that one. Me, you're not homeless. You're just upset you actually have to pay your own bills now. Then I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, Caleb messaged me. Caleb, dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. Me, you're inheriting everything. Why don't you send it? His response was instant. Caleb, you know I don't have that kind of cash right now. I smirked. Me, guess you better figure it out then, bro. No response. I went to bed feeling lighter than I had in years. But the next morning, the real bombshell dropped. A call from my apartment's front desk. Hey Ryan. Your parents are here. I nearly dropped my phone. What? The receptionist hesitated. They said it's an emergency. They won't leave until you come down. I closed my eyes, exhaling through my nose. They actually showed up. I took a deep breath, grabbed my keys, and headed for the elevator. If they thought showing up unannounced was going to change my mind, they were about to learn the hard way that I was done playing their game. I stepped out of the elevator and into the lobby, heart pounding but face carefully neutral. My parents were exactly where I expected them to be, standing in a tight little cluster near the front desk, with Mom in full dramatic martyr mode, Dad looking tense and impatient, and Caleb. Well, Caleb looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The second Mom saw me, she launched into performance mode. Ryan, finally. She rushed forward like we were in some kind of movie reunion scene. We need to talk. I didn't move. I just crossed my arms and stared at them. You showed up at my apartment uninvited. That's not how you get a conversation with me. Mom gasped, as if I had physically struck her. How can you say that? We're your parents. Dad stepped in, voice hard. This isn't a game, Ryan. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. There it was. No apology. No acknowledgement of their betrayal. Just straight to demanding money. I let out a humorless laugh. Not my problem. Mom clutched her chest. How can you say that? We raised you, fed you, clothed you. I tilted my head. Yeah? And I paid your mortgage, your bills, your groceries. I made sure you never had to struggle. And how did you repay me? By making sure I got nothing while Caleb got everything. Mom turned to Dad like she needed backup. Dad sighed heavily, as if I was being unreasonable. Ryan, we thought you'd understand. Understand what? I shot back. That I was nothing but your backup plan? That I was just supposed to keep paying while Caleb sat around doing nothing? Caleb, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. Dude, I didn't even ask for this. It's not my fault. Oh, that did it. That actually made me snap. I turned to him, eyes cold. You didn't ask, huh? But you sure as hell didn't complain when they handed you everything, did you? You didn't tell them, hey, maybe we should be fair to Ryan. No, you just sat back and took what they gave you, because you knew you'd never have to lift a damn finger. Caleb shifted uncomfortably. I mean, it's not like I forced them, exactly. I cut him off. Because you're weak. You've always been weak. And instead of pushing you to actually grow up, they just kept enabling you. And now they expect me to do it too. But guess what, Caleb? You're on your own. Caleb's face turned red. Jesus, Ryan, you're acting like a selfish prick. I laughed, genuinely laughed. Oh, I'm the selfish one? You, who never worked a day in your life? You, who lived off of Mom and Dad while I was paying their bills? You, who was perfectly fine inheriting everything while I got nothing? You think I'm the selfish one? Get real. Caleb. Caleb shut up real quick after that. Dad pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly trying to contain his frustration. Look, Ryan, this isn't about Caleb. This is about family. We are in serious trouble. And if you're any kind of son, you'll step up. Oh, there it was. I felt my jaw tighten, a mix of rage and exhaustion washing over me. I stepped closer to them, voice calm but deadly. Let me make this clear. I don't owe you anything. I did more for you than Caleb ever did, and you repaid me by cutting me out of your future entirely. That was your choice. Well, now I'm making mine. I'm done. Mom's face crumpled. Ryan, please, we didn't mean to hurt you, but you did. My voice was firm. You don't get to decide what does and doesn't hurt me. You don't get to treat me like an afterthought. and then come running when the consequences catch up to you. You made your bed, now lie in it. Silence. Mom sniffled. So that's it? You're just cutting us off? Just like that? No. I said simply. You cut me off first. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in my life, I think she actually realized she had lost. Dad just shook his head, his face hard. You'll regret this, Ryan. I smirked. No, Dad. For the first time in my life, I won't. Then I turned around and walked back inside, not looking back. They tried to contact me a few more times. Calls, texts, even emails. I ignored them all. And then, the social media war began. Mom and Dad went full victim mode online. It's so painful when your own child turns against you. We raised him, gave him everything. And now he won't even help us in our time of need. Family should stick together. Relatives started chiming in. Some were on their side. Some weren't. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The truth was already out there. I focused on myself. For the first time in my life, I lived for me. I traveled. I finally started dating again. I invested in myself. I bought a new place, a home that was mine, not one I was paying for on behalf of ungrateful people. And Caleb? Well, let's just say that reality hit him hard. Without me covering their bills, the mortgage fell behind fast. And guess what? Caleb didn't have the money to bail them out. The bank wasn't interested in their excuses. Within 6 months, the house was foreclosed. Mom and Dad had to move into a tiny rental. And Caleb? Well, he finally had to get a job. And oh, the irony. Guess who he called for help? Yup. I got a text one night. Caleb, hey man. I know things have been rough between us, but I was wondering if you could loan me some money to help get back on my feet. I stared at my phone, laughing out loud. I didn't even respond. Just blocked him. It's been over a year now. Mom and Dad haven't spoken to me in months. Last I heard, they're still struggling. Do I feel bad? No. Because I finally learned my worth. I spent years being their safety net. I spent years bending over backward for them. I spent years believing that if I just kept giving, one day, they'd actually appreciate me. But they never did, and they never would. So now, I live for myself. And it feels damn good. If you're out there feeling like the responsible one in a toxic family, listen to me. You don't owe them your life. You don't have to keep sacrificing for people who don't respect you. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who will never see it. Cutting them off? Walking away? It's not selfish. It's called choosing yourself. And trust me, it's the best decision you'll ever make.